come on, y'all. Like,
Jason,
come on. Like,
Jason.
Look. I believe his son hit him the same way I believe certain other events that happened last summer, right? So we all know what I'm referring to. So anyway, look, I don't think I don't agree, right? Like Elon Musk is still rich. Okay, this is the laziest Ocean's 11 ever. He just walked out of the building with everything of value. Yeah. This man walked out of the building with all of our information. He is not leaving. He's just working remote. And everybody understands what that is since the pandemic. So whether he was making, I've never cared. You all know this. I say this all the time on the air and every outlet. I don't care about palace intrigue. I don't care about who's friends with who this week, who's going to lunch with this person, this, that, or the other. He is still the richest man on the planet. He has access to more data than any other. No man should have all that power, according to a certain rapper that's associated with this administration. And, the damage to his businesses is negligible because he's still the richest man on the planet. And this is like, to say that it's, yes, he didn't want the shame of Tesla kicking him off the board, right? They might have done that, like if it gets any worse. But to say, oh, well, he's lost his money, it's that old Chris Rock joke where he's like, if Bill Gates woke up tomorrow with my money, he'd commit suicide, right? Like Elon Musk losing 50% or 70% of the value of one particular aspect of his billions. So what? But Jason, than 5 states combined.
But Jason, you're right. For normal people,
I would argue to April's point. It's possible. None of us have it confirmed. Somebody might have fought back about a certain job that he took with him. But at the end of the day,
Jason is just laying down the slot.
At the end of the day, what did I say? I just said somebody might have fought back. But that might be the only visual evidence that we have. The rest are sort of economic arguments that are being made, which is real, right? Like people are going to be mad, people are going to sort of fight back one way or another. But I think I maintain that as Michael pointed out, you've still got all these minions with weird, tag handle names running things.
Big balls.
Yeah, exactly. Like you've got all these kinds of people still running around the government, and those are the people we know of. Right. We don't know who they've turned. We don't know what other kind of loyalists that they've got within the system. And it could easily take, and I say this from pure political scientists looking at the sort of advancement of authoritarian regimes, it could take easily at this point alone, a decade to purge all of those people out of every single aspect of our federal government. And that would require another administration that was serious about it, not just another centrist organization. It's like, we can make peace with the people who work for an authoritarian regime. So that's already happened in 100 months, and that's his legacy.
That is such an important point.
So I want to add to both what Eugene and April said. I had somebody ask me yesterday on my YouTube channel. So I'm now, I'm live streaming, as we all are, right? I'm doing myself on my YouTube. And I had somebody ask me a question about, Trump's upcoming birthday and this big military parade. And they're like, look, do you think that, our military is safe, that they'll listen to Trump and everything else like that? And what I pointed to, which April talks about with federal jobs, and Eugene's talking about as well, is I said, here's one thing about the American military as a government job that matters. I said, unlike many other places in the world, the American military is actually a competitive employer. Yeah. I said there's a lot of places in the world where it's like the military is kind of the only job you can get, right? If you have a low level of education, blah, blah, blah. I'm from some dust farm in central Kenya or a poor part of Mexico. I'm just going to take that military job. I said, in the United States, the military has to compete with Walmart, and they have to compete with CVS, and they have to compete with Verizon. I said, so it actually leads to us having a much more educated and career-oriented military than most of the rest of the world, which means that you have men and women, and I love pointing this out because a lot of people don't know this. I've been writing about this for years. 40% of the women in the U.S. Army are Black.
Yep.
I was like, it's the blackest federal agency quietly we've ever heard, right? Like, can you imagine if 40% of the women in the FBI were black? Like, we have a whole different set of investigations happening in this country.
They'd be working faster, that's for sure.
Right? It'd be a very, very different kind of environment. Hair laid, missions done, everything. It'd be a TV series. So, but the point being, I said for that reason, we have a much more educated and rule-oriented military than a lot of other countries, certainly in the second and third world. People go into the military and get college degrees to become more educated. So when they are deployed, it's like, actually, I don't think we're supposed to do that. Or I'm going to report on that because I got a degree, I have a job, I understand these kinds of things. So the long-term consequences of these kinds of cuts with things like Job Corps disappearing and everything else like that is the men and women in our agencies are also less educated about the law, about standards, about American democracy. So the long-term consequences is they are much more susceptible to charismatic dictatorship that just tells you what to do, right? I when I was in graduate school, I had in my class, the master's class I did at Chapel Hill before I got my doctorate, we had 3 people in our class who were all in the Air Force. They were getting master's degrees in political science to be in the Air Force, right? So you know that when they went back and were serving their country, it was like, yeah, actually Kierkegaard said, right? Like, like they had a perspective on service that wasn't just going to be some grunt who's like, hey, this is the only job I could get out of Tuscaloosa County, blah, blah, blah. So that is the real, again, I keep being future oriented, the dumbing down, the lack of quality people that our government will be able to attract, as Eugene was sort of talking about. That's going to be our long-term undoing. We need smart people to want to work in our federal government, and we lose them because the job is uncompetitive or the jobs aren't available. Our long-term ability to function as democracy is compromised.
Well, it's funny because when you said that, I was like, yeah, folks. So Kier is guarding what? What's he guarding? I don't understand. I'm so confused.